All right, quiz review. All right, we have to label these pats. We can do that. Morning. We're going to use that word bank up on the top. Our first word is diaphragm. And this is the diaphragm down here. The epiglottis is that little flap of tissue that covers the trachea when you're eating. That's over here. When you're swallowing, really. And then this is the trachea. Right lung. Left lung. Nose. Left bronchus. Right bronchus. Here's our nasal cavity. And there's our pharynx. That's our throat. Okay. Everybody good? Let's continue down. Now we have a couple membranes that make up the respiratory system. One of the membranes surrounds the lung. One of the membranes lines the cavity. Okay. So when we're talking about visceral, this means organ. And we talk about parietal, that means cavity. All right, so the visceral is the one that surrounds the organ, so that's going to be this one up here. It's that lines the actual lung itself. This one, that's the viscera. And then we have the one that lines the cavity, which is this one. That's a parietal membrane. Any membrane of the lungs, we call that the pleura. And then we have a space between the two. Here's the space. This fills with fluid. And that space we call a cavity, the pleural cavity. All right. So it was 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 in order they go. All right, we have to label. This looks like a bronchial tree. Well, as it's labeled bronchial tree. And we have to label these parts up here. Starting with smooth muscle. So smooth muscle we don't see until we get to the very end in the bronchioles, because up here we got cartilage covering the tubes. But down here at the end, we lose the cartilage and we're left only with smooth muscle. So let's put smooth muscle in here. And then we're looking for the right primary bronchus. So if the trachea comes down, the first branch is the right primary bronchus. And then that should go to a secondary bronchus. Well, this is the left. Oh, they have this backwards. You see, they made a mistake. We're going to change this to left because this is pointing to cartilage over here. This is pointing to the cartilage rings. This is our left bronchus, and then our secondary bronchus, and then our tertiary bronchus. So let's fix that. And then we could do secondary and tertiary and then bronchiole. So it goes secondary. I screwed that up. Let's fix that. Maybe we should type it. It'd be easier. Secondary bronchus. And then we got tertiary bronchus. Come on. Now we got bronchioles. Oh, it doesn't like to give me a text box. And then we have what's called a terminal bronchiole, the very, very end. And then we're left with the little tiny air sacs called alveoli. Or alveolar sac, we should say. Here's that cartilage. They want us to label the cartilage. That's called cricoid cartilage. Cricoid cartilage. All right. Looks pretty good. Take a minute. And let's keep going. This is a close-up look at the alveoli, the alveolar sacs, and blood vessels. And we have pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins. What colors are the pulmonary arteries? Huh? Blue. Yeah, they're backwards. Pulmonary arteries come down with deoxygenated blood. And then we have the capillaries that surround the alveolar sacs. And then the oxygenated blood goes back to the heart. Pulmonary veins. So coming down, deoxygenated, going through the capillaries, the blood becomes oxygenated as the oxygen is going right through the alveolar sac walls, right through the walls of the capillaries. Remember, there's two walls here. Let's look at those walls. So over here we have blood in the capillary, and in here we have air in the alveolar sac. Oxygen has to go from the alveolar sac across this wall, get into the blood. At the same time, carbon dioxide is going the other way. Well, that's a pretty thin wall. It's only two cells. Simple squamous epithelium. We're going to go simple squamous epithelium. All right. Of the alveolus. That's on this side. And they're talking about this cell right here. This is a simple squamous epithelium. Simple squamous epithelium alveolar. Now, this is a simple squamous epithelium too, here, but that's of the capillary. Simple squamous epithelium capillary. Remember, we pulled the simple squamous cells out of our cheeks, looked at them under microscopes? The cells attached to these membranes called basement membranes. This is a basement membrane for the capillary. Here's a basement membrane for the alveolar sac. So basement membrane, basement, base membrane, base membrane. In here, we would find fluids in here, occupying this space. Fluid, interstitial fluid, we call that. What are alveoli? What are they? They are tiny air sacs that provide a site for gas exchange. What's the name of the blood vessels that carry blood to the lungs? Arteries go away from the heart. A for away, A for artery, right? So if we're going away from the heart, we're going to the lungs. What are the names of the blood vessels that carry blood away from the lungs? Which contain blood that is higher in constant oxygen? Arteries, pulmonary arteries, or pulmonary veins? Higher in oxygen. What do you think? Well, which one do we color red? In this case, the vein, which is the opposite when we compare it to the rest of the body. Because in the rest of the body, the arteries have the oxygen. This is the exception. What is the main function of the respiratory system? The main function to oxygenate the blood. Which two gases are diffusing across the respiratory membrane? Well, we could draw this. So let's draw the cells that divide the alveolus, and the blood, right? So let's say we're breathing in all this air over here on this side. Right, this is all air breathing in. This is inside the alveolus. And over on this side, this is all blood, right? Inside the capillary. If we breathe in air, oxygen is going to be in that air, right? So the oxygen, which is O2, is going to go from the alveolus, past these walls into the blood, and carbon dioxide that's already in the blood is going to go the other way, from the blood into the air sac. That way you can breathe it out. If we have a lung, the lung has a visceral membrane that protects it. The lung is sitting in a cavity it's called the pleural cavity, and that cavity has a membrane that protects it. It's called the parietal membrane. And in between the two, we have fluids that occupy this space here. And the fluids are nice because they act as a lubricant and it protects the sides of the lung as you're expanding and breathing, right? So this liquid acts as a lubricant. This is called pleural fluid. What is the function of the pleural fluid? We're going to say it protects and lubricates outer wall of the lung. Right. I think that concludes the review. Any questions?